Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at Battle for a Three-Dimensional World. Today's book is a little Jack Kirby oddity from 1982. This would be around the time that Jack was really doing like superpowers and some of that Pacific Comics stuff. But I'm going to say right off the bat, this is not a great comic for storytelling. It's not Jack Kirby's best work. It is a neat little thing to have, though, if you're like a Kirby collector or just interested in 3D comics in general. So once again, get out your 3D glasses because this will work if you watch this video with some glasses on. My last video on 3D was I did Astro City #1 3D edition. And in the back of that, it had a little bio on Ray Zone, who is apparently a big innovator of 3D technology, particularly in print. In the back of that book, it talked about how he saw his first 3D comic in the 1950s and just became fascinated with 3D technology and went on to he eventually developed the full color comic, 3D comic, in the 90s. However, at this point in his career, I can't really say like how much he had done before this particular thing or not, but this is pretty much a love letter to 3D technology. And that's part of the reason I'm saying it's not really a great story, and it's not even really a great comic in general, but there is a love and appreciation for the advancement of the medium in this that I think it's worth having, it's worth noting, it's worth talking about. So, as I said, the title of this is Battle for a Three-Dimensional World. It's a 3D cosmic book, and it came with 3D glasses. I got this off eBay. It did not have the glasses with it, so I don't know if they had like some printing on them or anything. I just have like a bunch of these, like I just showed a minute ago, these plain old white anaglyph 3D glasses. It's a pretty good printing job, though. It's got like a heavy cardstock cover, and the pages inside are like pretty heavy print paper too, especially for 1982. I will say this red being the primary color in this is a little off-putting. It's hard to say if it obscures the artwork, but it's hard for me to say this takes 3D to the next level from the stuff of the 50s, 60s, 70s, the random 3D comics that would come out that was more or less line art with blue and red separating the two. So the reason I mentioned Ray Zone is because this is written by Ray Zone. I think this is just like, this is his little brainchild. And how he got Jack Kirby to do this, I do not know. That would be an interesting story to hear if he just reached out to Kirby and, Kirby's like, sure, whatever, or how that actually went down. I'm sure there was admiration on Ray Zone's part for Kirby, because in the little bio, it said he started reading comics in the 50s, so he grew up with Kirby. Anyway, as I go through this, it's kind of a generic superhero story. A baby is born on this planet that they said is going to change the life of Earthlings going forward. Looks like Kirby was trying to give his dad that Captain Victory hair here a little bit. And the dad's like, with these glasses of red and blue lenses, he's going to grow up to be this character called Steron. And there's this evil queen of the 2D planet that is trying to hinder the development of 3D technology through time and space. And that's pretty much what we're going to be doing, is going through the development of 3D technology in real history. And this Steron character has to go and prevent this 2D woman from blocking it. It's super corny. And really that story of it I don't think is the important part for Ray Zone here. He was just wanting to tell this like history of 3D comics. Now I will say the 3D stuff, it does pop out pretty good, and like the two lines do merge pretty well as far as how it is perceived. Is it as good as that Astro City book? No, absolutely not. But that also came 15 years after this. So, kudos to Ray Zone for making a 3D comic that worked pretty well. This is more origin about the lady from the demon 2D planet, and she sends out these things called flatties after these people in history. So they're sending one to, or no, I guess that they said 200 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci discovered that basically with your two eyes, you're seeing two images at once and your brain is processing it as one, which is the foundations of 3D technology. She sends out these flatties, and Steron is able to travel through space and time to stop them. And because he's able to stop them, different inventors over time are able to create the 3D technology. So in this, by him using his blue-red eye beams, he shoots them out and it hits this guy's glasses, who is, what'd they say his name was? It hits Duharon's spectacles. And so he discovers that with a blue lens and a red lens, you'll see two separate things and they can merge together. So that's kind of the beginnings. And he's able to develop these stereoscopes in the 1800s. And if you've ever seen one of these devices, this is basically what it looks like. You put a picture right here. I guess there's different styles of them, but more or less you put a picture that had two of the same images, one in blue, one in red. They were slightly offset at the end of this looking device that had the anaglyph lenses in them, and it would combine them to give you a 3D looking image. And they were a fun gimmick for the 1800s especially. But photography was a thing already, so it started getting real pictures in 3D, even though they were just black and white. And again, we're just going to keep going through time here. It talks about other different inventors that led to creating 3D film, 3D cameras. Edwin Land, who created Polaroid, he actually created polarized lenses. Now, this is something I've just recently found out. I always thought of 3D technology in the 1950s as everybody wearing these. But today's 3D movies, we wear polarized lenses and we watch them in full color. And that was actually created back then. And some movies even had that technology where it was just a shaded lens. But what was difficult about them was it took two projectors that had to be aligned just right to display them. That, of course, was expensive for many movie theaters to have two projectors running at the same film. They had to be aligned just right, so sometimes it didn't quite work for the audience. The complications of that made it less feasible to use all the time. So it was kind of a gimmick, but it was really popular for a short period of time, just a few years, and kind of became passé. And again, we meet other inventors here who created 3D film so that it could only be done filmed with one camera and projected with one projector. And so that's where technology stood for many years. But as we keep traveling through time, more just developments through the thing. Okay, so we're back to our queen of the 2D world, and she transforms into this Cyclops. It's just adding a little drama. There's like very little story plot that makes this aspect of the story interesting. It almost would have been better had they just made this straight up the history of 3D illustrated by Jack Kirby and take all this silly superhero aspect of it. Just remove that. Take it out. Because what is being told here is interesting, but Steron is not at all. This 3D queen, the Cyclops is kind of cool, but that would be cool if we had like some huge splash page by Kirby or something, but we don't really get that. It just goes on to more explanations about the technology developing, how it became popular. You get some still photos from movies in here that look pretty good in the 3D and stuff. So again, Rayzone is pushing the limits of what this 1982 anaglyph technology was able to do on a printed page anyway. It points out that, surprise, people like to look at beautiful women in 3D, and 3D and sci-fi movies and stuff became all the rage. Comedies, I guess, were pretty popular in 3D, but again, they just kind of phased out. Here's a cool thing of the lady transforming into this Cyclops monster again. Why is she doing that? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Our Steron character is going to fly towards it. This is a pretty cool looking monster, though, by Kirby. I mean, it's very simplistic. She's pretty cool. Steron isn't one of Kirby's best designs. Some of this stuff I really feel like he's just kind of pulling out of his like old character archives of half-finished characters to do. Now, this is your big fight scene, this one page. I mean, I guess this was the closest you got to a big splash. Here's your fight where Steron sends the Cyclops / Queen of the 2D world into a black hole and saves the mankind from becoming two-dimensional, whatever that really means. And then in here it talks about how these guys were able to create 3D to be broadcast on television, and apparently that happened the first time a television broadcast that was in 3D was in 1980. And I do remember being a very little kid and getting glasses and watching a 3D movie, and it was probably Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's probably what's coming out here. I guess they don't mention it, maybe because they don't have the rights to show it or whatever, but I do remember as a kid doing that. And I want to say that we got our glasses from like McDonald's or something. I mean, I was little, so my memory's probably very fuzzy on that, but that's how I do remember it. So you got your family sitting around the TV watching it. Good representation coming out of the TV for 3D. This panel right here works really well for the 3D in the book, like with the Earth and stuff. You got some cool Kirby crackle in 3D there. Quick little, I guess this is Leonardo da Vinci wearing stereoscopic glasses. And this little timeline, I suppose, of 3D stuff. This must be one of those cameras that could take pictures in 3D. I've seen those like digital cameras and they have 3 lenses like that and they can take it and it just kind of wobbles. It's neat. It is neat, but it's more video. You know, it takes like a split second of just like going like kind of like looking at one of those lenticular covers or something. This is just a little write-up about where 3D technology stands in 1982 and how holograms are becoming a more common thing. And we'd see more of that, especially as we get into the late 80s and the 90s. Holograms start being used on all kinds of kids stuff. And then eventually, of course, we start slapping them on comic covers. So, and that's pretty much all this is. It's not a deep book. You got a full color 3D picture back there. So this, you know, they credit those other ones as the first full color 3D comic, I guess, for the whole issue. And maybe it would have been a bit much to print the whole book like that. But here we've got a full color image in 3D, and it works well. It works well. This is your Steron, Master of Time and Space. I don't know what this U.S. patent pending is all about. But anyway, neat little Jack Kirby book, kind of an oddity. I've never actually run across this in the wild. I did order it on eBay when I first heard about it. You know, it wasn't expensive. If you see it out there and you're a Kirby fan, grab it because it's a cool book to have. But it's not going to blow your mind for like, wow, this is a unheralded Kirby story like the Captain Victory is or something. It's just kind of a neat thing. But that's all I got. Until next time, read your comics.